got my goggles on, my socks are off. Flying through the hallway like a disco ball. Pitching to the couch, then I loop through the fan. My tiny whoop's grooving like a funky jam. I dip through the doorway, spin by the cab, bounce off the toaster, yeah, I'm meant to do that. Neighbors knocking, saying, what's that sound? It's my brush motor soul train getting down. Flying through curtain, dancing on breeze. Freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic, bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of flight. Can't stop it all. I got LED strobes and a shag rug trail. I'm looping through the lava lamp, leaving a tail. My whoop's got rhythm, my sticks got soul. I'm the pilot of the party. On a roll, TV remotes a gate, the lamps a dive. I'm flying like it's 7.5. No GPS, no rules, no shame. Just a funky little quad in a soul train frame. We fly that flow. Grab that gap. No time to nap. No time to nap. Hit that roll. Funk and control. Bounce that wall. We fly it all. We fly it all. Tiny whoop love, funky and free. We fly indoors, we fly with glee. Whoop it, loop it, groove it, move it, bounce it, flip it, funk it, rip it, fly that soul, don't lose control. Tiny whoop love gonna make you whole. I thread the needle through the vinyl stacks, bounce off the mirror ball, never looking back. My quad's got soul, it's got style, it's got sass. It dips through the incense like a blast from the past. I'm flying figure eights through the lava lamp glow, dodging house plants like a funky pro. My whoop's got rhythm, my sticks got heat. I'm the pilot of the party with the grooviest beat. I loop through the hallway, I dive by the broom. I'm the disco ghost in your living room. I hit that split that's over grandma's chair. She just claps and says, boy, you got flair. I'm flying freestyle with a velvet touch. My quad so smooth it don't need a clutch. From the shag rug to the ceiling fan, I'm the funky little fly with a master plan. The curtains dancing on the breeze. Freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of flight. Can't stop at all. Can't stop at all. Can't stop at all.
Greetings, cretins! My name's Aaron Ciotti. Welcome to Sunday Q&A. Mixed with a little bit of 2.5-inch prop testing. So, you were just watching the 04 Lite open prop sub 250G baby turtle that has been moved from the 2-inch frame to the 2.5-inch frame, which is still playing flight footage. Hold on. Eject. I don't want to screw up any of the flight footage that's on there because we need to use it. Now on the 2.5-inch frame. Significant difference in size between these two. You would like think 2-inch, 2.5-inch. Yeah, okay, a little bit bigger, but not that much bigger. It's a lot bigger. The 2.5-inch build is quite a bit bigger. And so in the never-ending hunt for the best the best ultra light, super safe setup to carry 04 Lite with hopefully as little jello and or Gyroflow madness as possible. Yeah, I took the flight controller VTX camera out of the 2-inch baby turtle frame, dropped it into the 2.5 with VCI 1103 11,000 kV motors. Let me see. Yes, VCI 1103 11,000 kV motors. These were the motors that were bolted down to this frame when I had it set up as an analog rig. I am going to test a bunch of different motors. These 1103s are not quite big enough for a beefy-ish tri-blade 2.5-inch propeller. That became super obvious in testing a few different propellers here today. I think if you are going to run an 1103 or a 1003 or anything smaller than that on a 2.5-inch propeller, the prop that you probably want is the Gemfan 2512. Very lightweight, very low pitch. It's going to work really well with a sort of smaller motor. The first step in motor testing this, I'm going to sneeze. The first step in motor testing this is going to be to move this thing to 1202.5s. I've got a set of Happy Model 1202.5 11,500s. I've got a set of GEP-RC Speed X2 1202.5 10,000s. And I thought there was a third set of motors I was going to test. I think there's a third set of motors that I'm going to test, but I can't find them at the moment. But yeah, we're going to test a couple of different motors on these props. For today, we're going to take a look at Gemfan 2520s versus HQ T 2.5 by 1.9 by 3s versus Gemfan Flash 2540s. Before this stream started, I got 3 batteries in with all 3 of these propellers. I was really hoping to also test the 2512s, but I just ran out of time. Then I had to go to the bathroom. That's why I was late. I'm also going to test these Azure props. These Azure, what are they, 2540s, right? Yeah, 2540s. These are almost certainly going to be way too pitchy, but we're going to test them anyway. And there's one more. Here is the bag of all of the 2.5-inch props that I've been able to buy in the last 10 years. There's not a lot. There's a lot less 2.5-inch props that have been made than 2-inch, I realized recently. It kind of makes sense. 2.5 has always been a little bit of a bastard child. There are a bunch of 2.5-inch ducted props, which are really good. These are the Gemfan ducted tri-blade 63mm by 3s. These are good, but this is a Cinewhoop prop, so we're not going to be testing these. HQ used to make a T 2.5 by 2.5. I can just tell you that this prop is too big and heavy. This would be like a, similar to these Cinewhoop props, you would want to run these on like a 1404 or like at least a 1204. These are big motor props. These are heavy propellers. So we're not going to test these because this is a rig designed to be lightweight. Emax, as always, has an AVAN for their 2.5-inch size. They're called Scimitar. 2.5 by 1.9, but they perform like they've got more pitch than 1.9. Again, these are great, but big motor. Big weight, heavy, super durable. We're not going to test these on a lightweight rig. It doesn't make sense. They don't pair well with the itty-bitty motors. And then we've got like the HQ 8-blade Cinewhoop props. Again, not going to test those. Doesn't make any sense. Too small of a motor. Not the right quad. Here's the other one that I was looking for. Smells like something's burning. I might have to run upstairs. Also, GemFan has the 63mm by 5, the 5-bladed 2.5-inch propellers. And then here's the other ones I was looking for. Oh, no, it's not. HQ also has a ducted tri-blade. Duct T63 by 3. Again, not going to test it. Too heavy. If you're building, like, if you were to build, like, a Quadmula Jin, the DJINN, that is a Quadmula open prop 3-inch frame that's big and beefy and strong, designed to drag around an 03 or an 04. I think they have an 04 Pro version of it now. But it's a big, chonky 2.5-inch rig. That's going to be a good bet for a bunch of these propellers that I've just been talking about here. HQ also has a 2.5 by 3.5, really pitchy prop. Again, really heavy, 1204 motor at the smallest. Realistically, though, like 1304, even 1404. Couple more Emax scimitars. That's weird. I could have sworn that there was another HQ prop. HQ has a 6-blade Cinewoop prop as well. Apparently they have 2 6-blade Cinewoop props. This one is slightly different. I don't think I realized that. Are they the same thing? Hold on. T 63mm. Oh, I'm stupid. That's a 5-blade. I can't count, bro. Oh, wait, no, they're both... Yeah, okay, no. One of them... No, that's a 6-blade. What? Yo, my eyes are shot, bro. My eyes are wrecked. These look totally different. We've got T63 by 6 GRPC. And then we've got T63 by 6 GRPC. Okay, so they're the same thing. One of them's way more gray than the other. Do they weigh the same? I'm intrigued now. I'm completely and utterly intrigued by these two very similar looking propellers. And then there's an 8-blade as well. There's an HQ 8-blade as well that we're not going to be testing. But yeah, there you go. That's like all of the 2.5-inch props that are worth a damn. There are these bi-blades. There are these HQ bi-blades. They are significantly out of balance. As I wrote there, not balanced. Unfortunately, there's not seem to be a 2.5-inch well-balanced propeller. But, you know, that's the story of our lives as micro enthusiasts. Micro quad enthusiasts. It's like the oldest person way to describe you and your group. If you call yourself enthusiasts, you're already dead. Just kick the bucket. So yeah, we're gonna take a look at three different propellers here today, and then I'm gonna do a little bit more testing this afternoon into tomorrow, and tomorrow night we'll have even more prop testing. But tomorrow night we will also have some motor testing. Hopefully, if all goes well. I will have swapped at least one of these 1202.5s on here so that we can get a feel for the different motor sizes. But lately, I've realized how big there is in terms of how big of a difference there is in terms of how well balanced some of these propellers are. And so, yeah, in the 2-inch props, for example, the HQT 2x2x3s were way better balanced than all of the other 2-inch tri-blades. So 4 of these lighter colored HQ 6 are 7.4 grams, and then 4 of the darker ones are 7.4 grams, so they're the same thing. Great! It actually says 7.3, but I don't care. I'm going to put these all in the same bag so that I don't do this test again. Who's building? What are you building? If you're building, what are you building? Tell us in the chat. Okay, so there's that. In the chat, I can see Uriel, J Tux, Danzel the Terrible, Smiles, Gusto, Ryan Sadat, Mo Penguin, Zzz, Striker, Uriel, Amit, Four Little Pigs, Bloudman. What's up, everybody? I'm not scrolling up in the chat. I'm just trying to read through it while I do this. Danzel the Terrible says, don't they eat squirrels in Georgia? I heard it's CiottiFPV's favorite dish. Uriel says, we were watching Eddie the Squirrel. Yeah, can you believe there was a squirrel there? I did that Matty flip that I always do. And like, as I came around under, I was like, was that a fucking squirrel on the corner of that? I did not know he was there until I did that little move. Thank God I didn't screw it up and hit him. Ryan Sadat says, happy Sunday. Would the 2.5-inch props fit on the Pro Turtle in pusher configuration? Do you think it would fly okay? Have any differences in vibrations, vibration frequency? Pushers I don't like. They put the propellers way too close to the ground, and then you can't like take off from the grass, for example. So, yeah, just from like a quality of life standpoint, the pushers can go to hell as far as I'm concerned. I don't think they're going to have any effect on like the vibration characteristics or anything like that. I think it's basically just where is it more aerodynamic above. I mean, it is just a situation of like where is it more aerodynamic above or below the propeller. When it comes to box frames, it's more efficient as a pusher. When it comes to frames like this, I don't know. And I'm probably not going to find out because as a pusher, the propellers are so close to the ground that you just can't take off when you crash, and that's absurd. So, yeah, not sure. It's a good question, but I do not know the answer. Not many frames are set up in a way that you can try both, and so it's a hard question to answer. The QAV Cine 2.5-inch box frame is one of the rare frames that you can just flip the camera upside down, and so it was easy to test that. And yeah, there's a difference in that box frame for sure. All right, let me actually go back up to the top of the chat. Doc Holliday was first. Frank Dr. Nicholas Douglas 6, Blueback, Flankadelic, J Tux, Bloudman, Hendrix Freakazoid, Spaceman Spiff, 16-bit. Chaser, Uriel, Dagoul, Denzel the Terrible. I think I got everybody now. If you want to talk directly to me, type at CiottiFPV. If you want to support me, go to CiottiFPV.com. It is very difficult to do this as a full-time thing. So if you like these live streams and would like to see them continue free here on YouTube, non-monetized, you got to support me. $3 a month. You can join my Patreon. Lots of benefits. You'll absolutely love it. You might as well go up to the $5 a month tier, for example. Tomorrow night is a giveaway live stream. So if you jump from the $3 to the $5 a month tier, tomorrow night you will be automatically entered to win some stuff. $5 a month tier is Tiny Whoop stuff. $10 a month tier is 3-inch micro brushless and Cinewhoop stuff. $15 a month tier is 5-inch parts. If you want to get in on all of those, it's $1 a day. $30 a month will enter you into all giveaways every single first Monday of every single month. You don't have to be on the live stream. You'll just get a box of stuff and you'll be good to go. You'll be loving life. J Tuck says, did you get the ND filter mount sorted? I did not. So TC Moore designed a Baby Turtle 04 Lite mount with the bayonet mount on the front for the Flywoo ND filters. And there's two problems with it. The main problem is that it is designed for taller standoffs than what my Baby Turtles have. I don't know why, but yeah, this is designed for like 2 or 3 millimeter taller standoffs. And I don't have any M2 standoffs in this side, so I can't really use this. The other problem, though, is that when you 3D print, especially out of TPU, something with these little latches for the little bayonet mount. So this is what it should look like. This is the molded Flywoo one. and you can see those 4 little notches there, right? So those are like molded in. Those little notches are called a bayonet mount, and they interface with the little notches on the inside of the ND filter. You see those little grooves, the grooves that are opened go into those notches, and then you turn it a little bit, and now it locks in, right, with nice molded plastic, and it holds on. Well, when you 3D print those itty bitty little latches, they're very weak. And so like you put the ND filter on, you twist it, and if you put any amount of forward force, the ND filter just pops right off. Before I realized that this mount was too tall, over on my 3D printing text channel, I asked if anybody could thicken up the little latches to make them at least a little bit stronger. I took a look in the Bamboo Labs software, and the way that they print right now, the little tabs are only 2 individual layers of 3D printing. And there's plenty of room. They're not nearly thick enough. And so I asked somebody to double the thickness up so that's 4 layers. If I can find taller standoffs, I will. I think somebody jumped on it. Yeah, it was CiottiFPV that jumped on it and made them thicker. But yeah, I need to get longer M2 standoffs to actually print it and try it. So thank you, Cole. I appreciate that. But for the time being, we are sans ND filter here. One of the so something that we learned on Friday's live stream is that, well, let me take a bigger step back. Putting HD into micros has always been a right fine pain in the ass. It's always something. It's either jello or just general like wobbliness. It's always been very difficult. Usually the problem is jello. Jello is still an issue. It's not that much of an issue though, especially if you can get an ND filter onto one of these. But even without an ND filter, a good clean build with a hard mounted camera tends to not have jello. Not always, but more often than not, it doesn't have jello. And so it's not that big of an issue. The issue is Gyroflow. We've now got 4K on board, beautiful looking flight footage. You go out and you fly in the wind, or just in general, these things are very lightweight. They're kind of moving around a little bit. For hardcore freestyle, it's totally fine. You don't notice it. But when you've got 4K 60 frames on board and you're in a cool spot with a cool looking sunset or rock or ocean or cliff face, it's mighty cool to be able to not fucking wriggle the sticks around like a lunatic, and actually slow down and deliver some really cool cinematic flight footage. But the problem seems to be the gyro that they've put into the cameras on the 04 Lite and the 04 Pro are very sensitive. And they're specifically sensitive to high frequency vibrations. The smaller a quad, the higher frequency the vibrations. And so on the 2-inch build, we did a whole bunch of propeller testing, and we found that these HQ 2x2x3s are significantly better balanced. And that helps quite a bit. This thing is way better than it was on any of the GemFan props that weren't nearly as well balanced. But it is still an issue. If you go full throttle on this 2-inch rig with the 04 Lite on board, even with the good balanced props and fresh motors, Gyroflow freaks out at anything above like 60% throttle. And so what I did yesterday is the reason that I know it's 60% throttle is that I took this out and I flew it, and I flew it and did some throttle sweeps at 100% throttle output, 90%, 80%, 70%, 60%. I took all of those files, I put all of those files into Gyroflow, and I looked at each one of them to see at what point Gyroflow starts to freak out. Is it above 70% throttle? Is it above 80% throttle, right? And it's just barely above 60% throttle. With this setup is 10,500 kV 1103 motors on HQT 2x2x3s. If you change the motors, if you change the propellers, that is going to change drastically. Some propellers are going to be easier to spin and they're going to want to turn higher RPM. Some propellers are going to be harder to spin. They're going to turn lower RPM. A bigger motor than this is going to be able to push the prop to a higher RPM, right? And so that is a totally changeable kind of situation there. But on this exact setup, if you change batteries, if you go to a battery that sags more or less, it's going to change that as well, right? Luckily, it's easy to test. You set a throttle limiter, not a motor limiter, a throttle limiter. At 100%, you fly, you sweep the throttle slowly up to 100, back down, you land it, change the throttle to 90, throttle limit to scale 90%, then 80%, then 70, then 60. You just keep doing that. You keep doing a slow throttle punch with each amount of throttle limiting. So, I mean, technically you could just point a camera at your sticks and have the screen on your transmitter be the overlay telling you the percentage of throttle that you're giving it. And then you could just sync that footage up with the actual flight footage that you're putting through Gyroflow. You could absolutely do it that way and then just slowly sweep the throttle up. And at some point when Gyroflow starts freaking out, you would look at the throttle value and away you go. I don't do the whole point camera at transmitter thing. And so it's just as easy to do it with a throttle limit. You just go into the OSD, right? Pitch forward, yaw left. That opens up your OSD. You go to rates, and then down the bottom is throttle. You turn it to scale. You turn the throttle limiting to scale, and then you go from 100% to 90, do the test again, 80, do the test, 70, 60. And so you will find a throttle limit where Gyroflow does not freak out if you have a build similar or identical to this. The problem is it's like 55%, and it's kind of hard to fly with your max throttle at 55%, even on a fairly powerful kind of setup. And so I thought that would be the answer. I thought that well-balanced propellers, good motors, clean frame, and then a throttle limit could be the answer. If the throttle limit was like 80%, we'd be okay. But at like 55% throttle, it's kind of hard to fly this thing. Like if you come down to the bottom of a dive and you go full throttle, you're like full throttle, full throttle, full throttle, full throttle. Like it's a little scary to fly it motor limited down that low. And so what I think is the best bet is that you just fly gentle. If you're going to take your hard mount camera 04 Lite 2-inch and you want to do cinematic stuff, you just stay super gentle on the throttle. Hopefully you've got your throttle value in your OSD. It's a really good thing to have that in the OSD. And so you kind of glance over at it every once in a while to make sure that you're below 55% throttle. Because like when you start flying these things cinematic, something little like this, it's really slow. And so you'll have this tendency to like put the nose down more and more and more to try to go an acceptable speed. And if you put the nose down far enough, your cruising throttle will be 60+%. So you got to keep kind of glancing over at that. But it's totally doable. And here's the proof of that. I did the majority of a battery flying this thing freestyle, keeping the throttle somewhat under control. And in Gyroflow, it looks really, really good. There are a couple moments where I push the throttle a little bit too far and you'll see a big judder. But yeah, here's the raw footage run through Gyroflow. Right off the rip here, I always do a full throttle blast. And the Gyroflow is going to freak out, as it always does. And now I think from this point on, I am just flying gentle. I'm trying to fly gentle, freestyle, still having fun, but flying in a way that doesn't make Gyroflow go nuts. You saw it there a little bit. I just gave it a little bit too much throttle on the way down to catch it off the ground. This is an interesting way of flying. It's really interesting, like specifically not trying to use more than 55% throttle on a freestyle rig that you're kind of used to railing around. It wouldn't be as awkward if I was at like a really interesting location. It would be totally fine. But like flying up and down the street in front of the house where I'm used to like shredding, it was a little bit difficult to stay out of the throttle, especially at the bottom of those dives. At the bottom of those dives, you got to get on the throttle early and let it really round out. But as you can see, like we're flying, obviously not like crazy ripping freestyle, but we're moving around the neighborhood. We're ducking and weaving. We're making some cool looking stuff without tripping Gyroflow up, just by staying out of the throttle, just by flying it. See, there's a little bit there. I put the nose down. That was a little test that I wanted to do. Put the nose down farther and farther and farther. Eventually, it starts freaking out. And so you just can't go that fast. You can't put the nose down that far because you have to use so much throttle that you get up into the RPMs where Gyroflow starts to freak out. And so on that climb, I used a little bit too much throttle there as well. I didn't know this at the time, but I was just trying to keep the throttle down as much as possible. I wanted to have somewhere in the middle. You can see it there again. I'm getting a little bit too deep into the throttle. I'm just trying to go a little bit too fast, right? Like this is, I'm traveling noticeably faster in this point. That means I'm pushing the nose down farther and I'm having to use more throttle. So totally possible to fly cinematic with a hard mount camera 2-inch 2S setup and not have gyro go nuts, but you have to be very careful on the throttle, and it also seems to help quite a bit if you have really fresh motors with the best balanced of the propellers, which are the HQ 2x2x3s, T 2x2x3s, I should say. So yeah, it's not as interesting as like look at this. So this is actually really impressive here. When you drop down behind a car, the wake behind the car always kicks the shit out of the quad. And in the goggles, in the DVR view, it does kick the shit out of the quad here. But watch this. Watch what Gyroflow does. I'm in it right now. Butter smooth. Butter smooth. This button here shows you what Gyroflow is doing. Watch the top strip here. Watch how much movement there is in this top strip. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Gyroflow is working it. Working. Really impressive. Really impressive that it was able to take out that shake from going behind that car. Because there was a lot of shaking going on. So yeah, I would say like 90% of this battery, I was able to fly at a low enough throttle to keep Gyroflow happy. It's not as fun. You have to be careful, but that's the way that you fly cinematic. You typically don't fly cinematic with your pants on fire, super hardcore, right? Like that's freestyle, and with freestyle, you don't want Gyroflow anyway. So, I think this is a really amazing little, see, just a little bit of wobbles there. I got a little bit too deep into the throttle again. Same thing there. I'm putting the nose down too far and it's freaking out. Yeah, I think that this setup as a 2-inch is totally doable and makes an awful lot of sense for somebody that's traveling and wants something really fun to fly. You can rip it freestyle. The only thing about like really flying this thing hard freestyle is that you're going to bang up the motors. And so you got to be careful with that, because one of the reasons that this is doing so well is that these are fresh motors. These are not motors with banged up bent motor shafts. And also fresh propellers. So like if you're going to fly it freestyle, look at them feet. If you're going to fly it freestyle, Hopefully you're not going to like bando bash it, because that's going to wreck the motors and the props. If you then try to fly it cinematic with banged up motors and or props, it's going to be a lot, right? It's going to be a lot more difficult. It might not even, you might get the Gyroflow garbage at all throttle values. But in theory, you know, you can build it with motor plugs like I have, and you can have a set of motors that aren't beat up for cinematic and a separate set of motors that are bando bashy, or just build two of them. They're pretty cheap, right? 04 Lite's not cheap, but yeah. So 2.5 inch. We've gone pretty far down the rabbit hole with 2 inch. I've not done a 2.5 inch HD build yet. So this is the first time I've done that. This is the Pro Turtle 2.5 inch frame. It's basically the same exact thing as this 2 inch frame, just scaled up. The philosophy here is that with the bigger propellers, we will be able to turn lower RPM all of the time. And the higher RPM seems to be where the 04 Lite has the hardest time. So maybe, even though I don't like or want or really need the bigger propellers from like a power or efficiency standpoint, the 2 inch setup has tons of power, has plenty of efficiency. I wish that I could get this working a little bit better, and maybe I can. We're going to look at some ways of soft mounting a camera setup here, but in the interim, let's try 2.5 and see how this is. So I've got a bunch of flight footage. The last flight was on these GemFan 2540s, which I have absolutely tons of that I'm going to be selling on the Etsy store. These are a very pitchy propeller. I also did the HQT 2.5 by 1.9 and the GemFan Hurricane 2520. And it seems like, this will be interesting, it seems like the 2520s, the GemFan 2520s, are the best balance. That's what it kind of felt like and sounded like on the sticks. We're going to take a look at that because I have Blackbox logs from at least the first two, maybe all three. I keep forgetting that. I keep filling up the Blackbox chip, but we'll see. And then I've got flight footage from all three of them that we can put into Gyroflow, and we can see how bad how often Gyroflow freaks out, which is actually turning out to be a totally valid way of seeing how well balanced these propellers are. If you have a build that does not have Blackbox, Blackbox is also a really good way of seeing how balanced propellers are. But if you don't have Blackbox, you can put a bunch of propellers on, make sure your 04 Lite is recording gyro data, and then just drop each individual file into Gyroflow. You're going to have to fly in a pretty specific way. The biggest thing that you want to do is when you first take off, and as often as possible, you want to do slow sweeps from 0 to full throttle. And you want to do them in the same sort of pacing. You don't want to do a bunch of them like this, and a bunch of them like this, and a bunch of them like this, because it'll be hard to tell. If you do them in the same pacing, it'll be easier to tell between the different propellers at what point it starts to freak out. And then you want to just fly in a similar way when you're testing each propeller. You want to come down and do a bunch of those sweeps, do them at the same pace, and then when you're looking back at the footage, if there's a set of propellers that's way out of balance, you're going to notice Gyroflow freaking out early and often. And then if you have a pair of propellers that are well balanced, you're going to notice that Gyroflow is freaking out a lot less often. You're able to get to like 70% throttle maybe before it freaks out, whereas a less balanced set of props, it's freaking out at 50% throttle, and it's going to be shaking all over the place way more often in that scenario. So that's sort of the test methodology. Again, I've got GemFan 2512s to test as well. I've got HQ RT 2.5 by 2.1 by 3s to test. These are probably going to be too pitchy, but we'll test them anyway. And then I've got these Azure 2540s to test. Again, probably too pitchy, but we'll test them anyway. I'm doing all of this testing on these 1103 motors because they're what's on here. I should have checked to make sure that these motors are not banged up. We'll do that live. I'll show you how to do that. I'll show you how to check the health of your motors. Dan Dill, the terrible. We got that. All right, let me get caught up on chat, and then we'll dive into some of these flight files and Blackbox logs and all that good stuff. Ryan also says, did you end up trying those T-Hobby 1103 11,000 kV motors? A lot of the Caillou Mini people like them. I am not familiar with those motors. When I got 1103s, I got 1103s that have motor plugs, and those were these VCIs. I have a funny feeling that I wouldn't get a VCI motor over a T-motor motor. So I'm willing to bet that the T-motor 1103s don't have motor plugs. And so I got these VCIs instead. Smile says, have you ever tested the $3 1103 15,000 kV motors from AliExpress? I believe those are the same motors that came on the very first FPV build that I bought over a decade ago. The original Emax Baby Hawk. They're silver and they've got yellow, black, red wires on them. Those motors were designed for a little toy drone. And so the magnets are very weak. They're not very well made. Kind of obvious. You know, the fact that they're selling them for $3 each, that should tip you off to that. So yeah, not well balanced, not very efficient, and not much power. But they are brushless outboard motors. They will work. They just won't work as well as like any of the other motor options, basically. Ryan says, Caillou Frames also recommends the Lava 1104 as an option. I wonder how that would fly on the Bando 2.5. Yeah, there's a bunch of 1103 and 1104 motors out there. 1104, so we're starting to get into a motor that's a little bit too tall. So we've got 4 millimeters tall and 11 millimeters wide. So if we go 4, 8, 12, 12 is close to 11. So that an 1104 is a motor that's roughly 3 to 1. Sorry, 3 to 1. That's tough. That's like a 2207. That's like a racing motor where it'll make a lot of power for its weight, but you can pretty easily overheat it. I would opt for if I wanted to go bigger than 1103, I would go to a 1203 rather than going up to an 1104. But that's just me. If you want a lighter setup with more power, an 1104 will do that. Yeah, there's a bunch of different motors out there. I do think, though, that getting to a 12 millimeter wide motor is a really good idea, because at that stator size, the motor shaft goes from 1.5 millimeters to 2 millimeters. So any of the 12 motors are going to be way more durable than any of the 11s, 1103, 1104, 1105, whatever. Because the 11 series motors and smaller only have a 1.5 millimeter motor shaft down inside the bell. This part of the shaft here on a 12 millimeter wide or bigger motor, this part is 2 millimeters thick. Smaller than 12, 11 and below, this in here is 1.5 millimeters thick. Up above the bell, doesn't matter. It's about underneath the bell. I mean, it does matter, but it doesn't really change up above the bell. These are all, on the 0702s, this is 1 millimeter, but on everything bigger than that, it's 1.5 millimeters. So yeah, 1202 and a half, 1203. I think that's going to be a much better motor size than 1103, 1104. But I had these motors bolted down. They should be pretty clean. We're going to test that, and I'm going to show you how to test that. I made a couple of XT60 to BT 3.0 adapters. It was actually very easy. So the pins that you solder to. See if it'll focus on that. the pins that you solder to on the BT 3.0, you see them? They're flat cut, they're round, and then they're flat cut. You're going to rotate these. You're going to grab them with pliers and you're going to rotate them so that the rounded part is on the outside of the BT 3.0 lead. And then on your XT60 lead, it's the same thing, but they're instead of being flat cut, they're round like this. And you're going to leave them like that. The XT60s should have the openings on the outside. And what's really, really nice is that you rotate those BT 3.0s so that they're round on the outside. And then the XT60 is round like this. And so it nestles right in there. And you can make a very clean, very strong little adapter pretty easily. I just have to figure out what I want to put in between here. I think I might do epoxy. I think I might mix up a little tiny batch of epoxy and let it sit there for a minute or two and let it thicken up and then jam it in here. It's going to make this permanent. I'll never be able to take these apart, but that's okay. I want it to be really strong. I don't want... Solder is not a good... Solder does not have good mechanical principles. It's not physically strong. You can break solder off fairly easily. And so you never want to rely on... And like, the metal parts are like really close to one another. So it should be plenty strong. But yeah, you never want to rely on solder. So I got to put something in between here. Easy button would be E6000, but it's kind of squishy, and I'm worried it's going to want to ooze out of there. I think if I let epoxy set up a little bit until it gets to where you wouldn't really want to be working with it anymore, I could just jam it in there, and I think it won't want to ooze out. But yeah, very cool, very clean, very easy to make. And I got Marty and Moog's of Mighty Car Mods fucking cassette, bro. Cassettes are coming back. And I believe the Miata has a cassette player in it. If not, I have a cassette with nowhere to play it, but that's okay. Every time that Mighty Car Mods does a big adventure, and they do about one a year, they'll go to like Japan or Europe, and they'll typically like buy a car, mod it, drive it around, meet people. Every time they do that, they will make... So that previous to Mighty Car Mods, they were both musicians. And so they do all of the music for all of their specials. And it's really cool because they'll make the music like fit the vibe of the special. When they went to France, they did the music that they wrote had like a cool French kind of vibe. When they went to Japan and they bought a late 80s K car, they did like a cool 80s, 90s Japanese vibe to the music. And so, yeah, this is the second. KEI is K, or as in like K car in Japan. K cars are 600 cubic centimeter limited, very lightweight, little, super fuel efficient, itty bitty cars. And so, yeah, for the second time, they went to Japan and bought a K car or key car, and modded it and did cool, fun stuff. And yeah, they made a fucking cassette, and it's just the greatest thing ever. I grew up on cassettes, so this has a special kind of nostalgia for me, from the case to the artwork. Super, super, super cool. And Marty and Moog make awesome music. They are very, very talented musicians. So yeah, this soundtrack is really good. It's on all their stuff's on Spotify. But yeah, I had to have it, man. I had to have a bright yellow. And so the one of the cars that they bought was a Honda City Turbo. In one of the options, I'll show this to you guys. This is actually really cool. Honda City Turbo trunk. I'm going to search for trunk. Honda City Turbo trunk. Because one of the options in along with the Honda City Turbo, they made this insane little motorcycle that fits perfectly in the trunk. And it folds up. It's a little fold-up motorcycle called the Moto Campo. I don't know why it's red here. It's always yellow. The yellow of this cassette is the same yellow of the Moto Campo. There it is. So that's the more normal color of the Moto Campo, this yellow. And so they made the cassette tape the same yellow as the Moto Campo. These Moto Campos are incredibly expensive now because they're so sought after. It's really cool. It's like a little suitcase motorcycle. The handlebars fold down, the seat folds down, and it's just this, like, you know, box basically. And so yeah, there you go. There's a bunch of car info that you probably don't care about. But yeah, yo, I got a cassette tape. I used to have a bunch of cassette tapes when I was a kid, and I remember when, like, CDs were obviously, like, the answer, I just got rid of them. I was like, these cassette tapes are a motherfucker. Like, these things suck. They sound like shit. They're annoying as hell. And so I just got rid of all of them. I don't have any of my old cassette tapes. And now I have this one. And that makes me very happy and proud to be an 80s kid. Mo Penguin says, me. Striker says, those A-Vans are always very pitchy, even though they don't say so. Indeed. Ryan Sadat says, I think I found my favorite 2S battery. Dogcom 560 mAh, 150C, handles ultra long punch outs, and voltage barely sags. Shame they're out of stock everywhere. Is that a heavy battery? I'm gonna take a guess that that's a heavier battery than other 550 mAh cells. That's one of the ways that they make batteries sag less, is it actually, like, they'll call it a 560, but it'll actually be like a 650, because there's no standardization whatsoever. These manufacturers can do whatever they want, and so yeah, I'm gonna take a guess that that's a battery that's a little bit heavier than other similarly MAH batteries. It might not be. It might just be a better chemistry in there, but typically, yeah, when a battery doesn't sag as much as others that it's similar to, it'll be a heavier cell. Uriel says, is there also a weight difference between each other? Maybe it's a test, just weighing a bag of props one by one on a scale can be surprising or not. There could be, but my scale is not good enough to tell the difference. My scale is only accurate to 0.1 of a gram, so I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Amit says, what's up? Uriel says, Lego Bugatti Veyron, sorry. What's that mean? YouTube did the thing. I'm having to scroll back up to try to find my place. Amit says, check out some pics in Discord of a build I'm working on. Amit also says, do you tune your 2.5 inches? I tune pretty much everything. It's just so easy. Like, you just open up the OSD and you move the sliders over a little bit until it makes funny noises, and then you back them off, and that's like a tune that's 80+% perfect. So yeah, no reason not to tune pretty much everything. That being said, I have not adjusted the tune on this. I was in such a hurry, but this AIO was tuned on the 2-inch rig, and so it's got the same tune as it did when it was on the 2-inch props, and it's in the 2-inch frame. Doc Holiday says, we got subscribed on your Patreon. Just finished my Mobile 8 HD build. Your videos saved the day again, like your 65 and 75mm builds. Love it, dude. Thank you for the support. Glad I could help. Danzilla Terrible says, try printing minuscule bits like that lens mount at lower layer height. Makes for more layers, which are interlocked, can be slightly stiffer and stronger. I was thinking about that. I was thinking about changing the layer height, but I've got that thing pretty well tuned for Sane Smart TPU at 0.25mm layer height, and so changing anything is a little bit scary. But we'll see. First things first, I got to find longer M2 standoffs if I can even run that at all. So, Aletop says, I have a 75mm open prop build on 802s. I need new motors, and I'm thinking 1002. What do you recommend? Gep RC SpeedX 25,000 or RC Empower 22,000. I need them to be durable on GemFan 1610. So there's not going to be a difference in durability. other than like it seems like sometimes the happy model motors will be a little bit less durable, but I've not seen that on like the 702 happy model motors, so I don't know. It could just be the motors, the happy model motors that get a bad rap are the 1103s. The 1103 happy models seem to be a little bit weaker. I've not had that experience with any other happy model motor, so it might just be those. But if it's a 1S, then if it's a 1S build and it's on 1.6 inch propellers, which is what it should be if it's 70, if you're calling it a 75 millimeter, the Gepar C25000s are definitely the way to go. That higher KV is magic on the Gemfan 1610. So yeah, get those. Amit says, what's the weight on your analog 2.5 inch builds, no battery? You know, I don't know. I do have a number of live streams about that build, and so it will be in there. But I don't have any analog 2.5s at the together at the moment to be able to test. But you know, they're as heavy as they are. Like, you know, most of these frames are pretty much the same. The electronics all weigh the same. The video system weighs what it weighs. Motors have a slightly different weight here and there, but yeah, you know, build the setup that you want in terms of like power and runtime, and just let it weigh what it weighs. Is going to be my opinion. Don't put giant chunks of TPU all over it. Keep the TPU to a minimum and just enjoy it. Headboop Games says, CiottiFPV in chat, just poking the stream to say hello from Norway, and that gangly dude on my screen is one of the reasons I'm focusing on small drones. Thank you very much. Love it. Norway, you lucky bastard. It must be gorgeous. Degul says, picked up a Bando Turtle 2.5 because purple carbon. Would it be a better candidate to build out analog or 04 Lite? Just built out a HD0 SL25 8mm standoffs for variety in the fleet. It's not going to be better analog versus 04 Lite. It's just going to be, do you want it to be lighter and cheaper, or do you want to be able to see where you're going and have it be quite a bit more expensive and not as durable? So yeah, it's a very simple decision between analog and 04 Lite. They are drastically different. Yeah, so that's how you pick. And that purple carbon is just so good. Like, it doesn't really show up super well on the camera here, but like in person, the purple carbon is just goddamn gorgeous. Striker says, I feel like 2.5 is the threshold for me where I'm going to direct solder. I doubt they'll rip off on a carbon fiber frame, and honestly, I feel like the performance starts really getting affected. Maybe. Here's the thing, though. Going up from 1S voltage to 2S voltage makes the motor plugs a lot less of an issue. And so it might not. It might not be a substantial kind of problem. I get crazy runtime and crazy power on this. So, yeah, like, unless you absolutely need more power and more efficiency, don't go to direct solder because it's a pain in the ass. You know, like, do the build with motor plugs, and then if you're not getting enough power or you're not getting enough efficiency, then consider swapping to direct solder. But if you are, just leave it, right? It's going to make living with it so much easier. It's going to make testing different motors so much easier. I did have something interesting happen right before the live stream, though. I crashed this thing really hard, and one of the motors actually came unplugged. There's no damage whatsoever, but it hit hard enough to unplug one of the motors. That's an easy fix. You take the tiniest little dot of E6000 and you just put it between the plug and the connector, and it's super easy to get it off with your fingernail. But yeah, that was kind of wild that I hit hard enough to unplug one of these. Luca says, could the Beta FPV 1103 motors from the 2-inch work on this? They'll definitely work, but they're going to be a little bit weak because of the 1.5 millimeter motor shaft. I'm basically asking if I could take my 2-inch Bando Turtle and take it straight onto the 2.5. Definitely, you can definitely do that. But on the 2.5 inch build, I think going to a 1202.5 or a 1203 is going to be a better deal. You're going to get more durability, more power. And you're going to see from the RPM that these 1103s are working really, really hard. They're a little bit out of their depth on these 2.5-inch props. Soon as I get caught up on chat, we'll dive into that. Danzel the Turbo says epoxy in the gap and a custom colored TPU sleeve for the outside of that little adapter. So one of the adapters I'll be able to do that on. This guy here, I'll be able to run shrimp wrap around here, and then I can't let the shrink wrap go too far here because this is the female side, right? This is, or actually, sorry, it's the male side. And so yeah, I can do a little wrap of shrimp wrap on this one, and then I can do the opposite on this one. I can shrink wrap a bunch of this XT60, but then I can't let the shrink wrap go beyond the little notch here because this is the smaller side of the BT 3.0, right? And so, yeah, I usually when I make connectors like these, I do like multiple layers of shrink wrap to make it nice and strong. But because the female parts of these are so close, it becomes a lot harder. And that's why I'm thinking like just taking a clear epoxy and just dumping it in there is going to be the way to go. But I'll try it and see how it works out. Striker says, how's the durability of the 2-inch carbon fiber open prop builds compared to the 3-inch freestyle rigs? It's hard to tell because I'm not like hammering on these 2-inch setups yet, but they seem pretty good. A 2-inch setup like this on a 1202.5, that's where the durability gets really, really good. Danzilla says, now find a cassette player. Since the nostalgia of them is all over the place right now, they're not hard to find. They're all over on eBay. Uriel says, do you remember sitting at a radio and trying to record favorite songs from a favorite station? I was not a big radio person. I certainly remember going cassette to cassette and like queuing up a cassette and trying to catch it at the end of the song and all that shit. I do remember doing that. Ailtop says we love cars. Good, because I know more about cars than FPV. Striker says I miss late 90s, early 2000s style indie rock, the Strokes type stuff. I record all my songs on an 8-track tape as a motherfucker indeed. Yeah, I got to live through like the golden age of indie rock in the late 90s and then all through the 2000s. Bands like Copeland and May were a couple of my favorites, but man, there's a bunch. Jack's Mannequin, there's so many. I did kind of drive that music into the ground a little bit, but I do still see May every time they tour. So, where else are we at here? Mo Penguin says, I bent a Happy Model 1103 the day after you said they do that. Going back into a whoop frame, yeah. Uke says, when I crashed my Hummingbird V3 from RX Lost, landed on top of a smaller building, and one of the motors came unplugged, leaving it stuck there for a month. Oh my god. Until I came back with the Neo. That's awesome that you came back with the Neo and got it off of there. Hell yeah. Oh, the Hummingbird still worked, just had to break the rust free from the motors. ELRS eventually died a month later. That sucks. Headboop Game says, that's the first time I've heard. I'm lucky to live in Norway. Yeah, I mean, every area has its problems, but from what I've seen, Norway is pretty goddamn gorgeous. And living somewhere pretty is something that I think we take for granted. When I lived in New Jersey, there were certainly pretty parts of New Jersey, but it is similar to New York in that it's kind of like a concrete jungle in a way. When I moved to Charleston, South Carolina, that whole area is very pretty, and that really, I kind of took that for granted pretty quick, how nice it is. And then when I moved here to Atlanta, Atlanta is called the city in a forest, and like, it is a forest, and it's not ugly, but it's also nothing like this trip that Maggie and I took to Portland, Oregon, last week. that really reminded me of how special it is to live somewhere that is gorgeous. And yeah, we're all hot to trot to try to figure out how to live there now. So we'll see what happens. It won't happen for like 2 years. So, but yeah, we're looking for opportunities in Portland when Florence graduates high school. It would be super cool to move to the West Coast, live there for a while. Doc Holliday says, I started with a 66 Mustang with a Craig 8-track player. Still have those 8 tracks. Oh my God. I never had anything with 8-track. Head Boop Game says, true, we always want what we don't have. Yeah, ain't that the truth? Uke says, GPS drones with adjustable gimbals are a godsend for saving whoops. Indeed. The main reason I won't get rid of my Neo little fishing line and hook. Awesome. I mean, dude, the Neo is so cheap that you could buy a Neo to recover stuff like this, and it would pay for itself the second that you recovered it. Okay, let's dive into some flight footage and let's look at Blackbox logs first, actually. Because I'm very curious how many logs there are going to be. The first propeller that was on here was the Gemfan 2520, which I've actually been pretty impressed with so far. So let's take a look at that, and then hopefully we can at the very least compare it to the HQ 2.5 by 1.9. T 2.5 by 1.9. So we've got a couple of Blackbox logs on the quad. We're going to plug it in. We're going to launch Betaflight. We're going to connect. And yeah, see, data flash free 0 bytes. So I did fill it up. So there's probably only 2 logs on here. So you can see on the onboard data flash chip, it says used space 8 megabytes. And this bar is filled all the way up. So this Blackbox 8 meg is completely filled. This is the way you want your Blackbox to be set up. Typically, it's onboard flash. And then you want 1/2, which is 2 kilohertz. And then you want gyro scaled for your debug mode. This is important. Gyro scaled for the debug mode is going to record the raw gyro data. And for propeller balance testing like this, you need that. And so make sure it's set up like that. And I could actually probably turn some of this stuff off. What can I turn off in here? Altitude for sure. Accelerometer I do want to leave on. GPS, we can turn that off. Magnetometer, we can turn that off. By turning this stuff off, it'll Blackbox for longer. It won't waste trying to log all this other shit. PID, RSSI, set point. Yeah, I want to leave the rest of these on. Okay, so we're going to save and reboot. That'll make the Blackbox logs go a little bit longer. Okay, so that's how you want your Blackbox to be set up. Now that we have a bunch of logs on here, we're going to click Activate Mass Storage Device Mode, and that's going to make it show up on your desktop as a hard drive called BTFLT, Betaflight. And so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make another folder called 2.5-inch madness. I'm actually going to call it prop/motor testing. That's a little bit more intelligent of a title here. Prop/motor testing for the 2-inch file as well. Okay, and so I'm going to make a folder that I'm going to call 1103 dash. The first file is going to be on the 2520 propeller. So 1103, 2520. Some of these, so a lot of times there will be extra Blackbox files that are just garbage. So what I do is I select them all and get info to open them all up. And then I just look at the size of the file. So BTFL001 is only 6,144 bytes. That's nothing. There's nothing in this file. This one's junk. Number 2 is 49,000 bytes. This might still be junk, but it actually might be something. It's probably junk, though. Here we go. 3,680,000. This is an actual Blackbox log file. Next one, 6,144. That's junk. Next one, 3 million. So we got 2 good Blackbox logs on here. And then the last one is 684,000. This is probably half a log. We might have half a log for the 2540 propellers. So Betaflight 1 is garbage. 2 is probably garbage as well, but I'm going to pull it over just in case it's not. 3 is definitely a file. So 3 is the correct file for the 1103 2520 testing. So that has copied. The next folder I'm going to make is going to be 1103 dash T 2.5 by 1.9 by 3. This makes it super easy to tell the difference between the GemFan props and the HQ props by naming them the way that they're named on the packaging. And then the last folder, I might as well make it real quick, is 1103-2540, the GemFan 2540 props. But the T 2.5 by 1.9 is the second file that I ran. It's not 04. That one's 6,000 bytes. That's nothing. It's 05. So it's this one here. Drag and drop it. And then 06 is potentially this. It's at least some of the 2540 Blackbox logs. So we got all the logs in there. I didn't unlock them or anything. I just dragged them in there. So now, sort of like from an order of operations standpoint, what I do is I eject it, unplug it to reset the flight controller, plug the flight controller back in, and then come in here to Betaflight, and you got to erase it. Come in here to Betaflight, connect Blackbox, and you're going to erase Flash. You have to do it here. You can't just drag and drop those to the trash can. It doesn't work right. And so now while that's going, what I'm going to do is come in here, and I have to unlock all these files that I copied across. So just unlock those. Get info, unlock. Come on. Go. And then the last one here, get info, unlock. Okay. And while I'm doing that, it has now deleted it, and we're good to go. We can disconnect, and we do not need Betaflight anymore. Unplug the quad so it doesn't sit there just getting hot. So, Blackbox. We're going to launch it here. And I'm using an older version because I'm too lazy to download the new version. Let's take a look at the 2520s first. Let's take a look at that little small log. Okay, so that little log, it says error opening log, no logs in this file. Cool. So we can get rid of that 002. It's 003. That's an actual log. So here we go. The workspace here, Mark Spatz has amazing workspaces that you can download from UAV Tech. It might be a Patreon only thing, but I'm going to go to noise plots. This is what looks at the gyro scale data on roll, pitch, and yaw. And so we've got that. The next thing I'm going to do is click this little view hide analyzer display button here to show this graph down here. And then I'm going to click zoom onto the analyzer window. And now here we go. This is where we learn the most. And so just really quick, we're going to click gyro scaled roll and then gyro roll. This is the raw gyro data. This is after it's been through the filters. See how it squashes down? That's a good thing. That's what we want. Let's check pitch. Gyro scaled pitch raw. And then this is after the filtering. Great. The filtering is doing a really good job. Yaw doesn't really matter, but I always like to look at it just out of curiosity. So this is pretty clean, these 2540s. So now we're only going to look at the gyro scaled, the raw gyro data, which is going to tell us what vibrations the gyro is seeing that are coming from the motors and propellers and frame and all that jazz. And this looks really good. This is really clean. There's roll. Here comes pitch. We've got max motor noise on pitch at 325. Max motor noise on roll is at 476. That's great, nice and high. We get worried when we see spikes down below 200 hertz. These spikes are all up high enough where they shouldn't be much of an issue. There's a little drop down right here, and you can drop this down to frequency versus throttle. It's the second option. This is going to bring up our waterfall graph, and on the waterfall, we're going to get these diagonal lines. On this graph here, the frequency is on the bottom. So 0 hertz, 200, 400, 600, 800, 1000. So as we travel to the right, for you it's this guy, it's this way. As we travel towards the right, the vibration gets faster and faster and faster. Of course it does. The RPM goes up, right? As the motor spins faster and faster, the vibrations become faster and faster. On the vertical here is the throttle, 0%, 20%, 40%, 60, 80, 100. And so when we see a diagonal line, that is the rotating assembly. As the throttle goes up, the frequency goes up. If we see a vertical line here, like we see all the way on the left, that's like a frame resonance or something that doesn't change with the throttle going up. And so this vertical area, this diagonal line here that we're seeing, this is how well balanced the motors and propellers are. And so that's roll. If we click through to pitch, it'll usually look a little bit different. There you go. And then we're also going to click through into yaw, gyroscaled yaw. The yaw tends to be less, it's less bright, so the vibrations are not as violent, but it tends to be a very defined kind of line. And like if you think about what happens when a propeller is out of balance, right? Usually like one of the blades is going to be heavier, right? And so this propeller is going to spin around. This propeller is going to spin around, and one of these blades is going to be too heavy. And so let's say it's this blade. So as this blade spins around, it's going to want to like take the motor with it, right? Because it's heavier. And so it's going to make the quad want to move in this direction. Of course, we've got 4 of them, so they're going to interact with each other. But I think that the yaw axis is the one that's going to have the most impact when a propeller is out of balance, because this is yaw, right? This is all traveling on the yaw axis when it rotates around. The pitch axis, the pitch axis and the roll axis, I don't feel like they get as affected as bad. They obviously do because we're looking at it in the Blackbox logs, but I'm always most curious about the yaw, and it's always interesting to me that on the yaw axis we tend to have the most defined line. It's not as strong as the other axes, right? As this gets wider, it gets more amplitude, a harder vibration. The wider it is, the harder it's shaking. But like you see on the roll and the pitch, it's more like glomped up. Like, yeah, you can see it down here, but like look when we go to yaw, it's like very defined, right? It's a very defined line. So I don't know. My current guess is that looking at motor and propeller balance, I feel like maybe the yaw is the right axis to look at. But I could totally be wrong. So this is the Blackbox log from the Hurricane 2520s. What's really cool is I've got all this set up. I'm going to look at gyroscaled yaw. I can now just grab another Blackbox log and drop it in, and it'll immediately show us the difference. So I can tell you that this is pretty good. This is pretty clean. These 2520s are pretty well balanced from what I'm seeing here. But let's compare it to the HQs. Ready? So this is the HQT 2.5 by 1.9 by 3. I think this is the way that they feel and they fly and they sound in the real world. I think this is going to be worse. I think this is going to get brighter and more defined. It's almost the same. Let's go back to the 2520. Come on. Come on! Did it change and I just didn't notice it? I think it might have changed and I just didn't notice it. They're very close. 2520. Ah, there we go. Okay, 2520 there, and then HQ 2.5 by 1.9. Okay. Boy, are they similar. Let's take a look at the GemFan 2540. This is an older propeller. Yeah, okay, so that's worse. That is significantly worse. See how we've got like some white areas in here? It's also not nearly as defined. So the GemFan 2540, this still isn't that bad. It looks okay, but that is a little bit worse. So that's kind of what we're looking for. Let's take a look at pitch. Let's compare the pitch axis on all three of them. So this is the GemFan 2540. Here comes the GemFan 2520, much newer propeller. All right. And then here is the HQT 2.5 by 1.9. Very similar. The HQ and the GemFans are really, really similar. It looks like the GemFan is actually a little bit better. This is a little bit more narrow in here. The HQ is like a little bit wider in here, you can kind of say, I think. And there's a pretty defined I think they're about the same now. I think they're about the same. And now GemFan 2540, the older propeller. It's not as defined. All right, so here's something that's interesting. 2540. 40 is a ton of pitch. Look at where this diagonal is. This diagonal for the 2540 is farther to the left. Sorry, farther to the left. It's a more pitchy propeller. The motors can't turn it to as high of an RPM, and you can literally see that. You can literally see the difference in pitch between these props. Ready? Watch it shift to the right. Bang. See that? It's a less pitchy propeller. And now if we compare it to the GemFan 2520, let's see where it goes. It's about the same, which makes sense. 2520, 2.0 inches of pitch, 1.9 inches of pitch, 4.0 inches of pitch. The 19 and 20 are basically in the same exact spot, and then the 40 is significantly farther to the right. Very cool. Very, very cool stuff. And then I guess we might as well just take a look at roll real quick. There's the 2540. Here's the GemFan 2520. On the roll axis, you can see it's higher up. I will say this. That's got a relatively strong white area here. The whiter it is, the harder the vibrations. Here comes the 2.5 by 1.9. Wow, okay. So for whatever reason on the roll axis, right? Yeah. On the roll axis, the HQ is doing a lot better than the GemFan. Here comes the GemFan. We're on the HQ now. Yeah, see that bright white area? But then what's also interesting is that the old school GemFan, the 2540, is actually looking pretty good on the roll axis. We got like a couple weird little bands here, but other than that, it looks pretty good. These 2540s are also not fresh. These are a little bit, they've been flown before. They've been crashed once or twice. Not hard, but the 2540s were not fresh. If they were fresh, I'm thinking they would be a little bit cleaner than that. But yeah, there you go. There's what 3 different propellers look like in Blackbox. I guess we should also look at the standard frequency chart here. So let's look at gyroscaled yaw. Come on. Come on. All right, gyroscaled yaw. Yaw is too clean. Hold on. Let's go to pitch. About roll. Let's look at pitch. I think this is the 2540 that's in here now. Let's go to the 2520. Okay. And then the 2.5 by 1.9. Interesting. The HQ prop here has a bigger peak there, but a bigger peak at 436, but a smaller peak down a little bit lower. And then the GemFan 2540 it's got those same two peaks, but the lower peak is stronger than the higher one. That's kind of funny. But what I can tell you is that the GemFan 2520 and the HQ 2.5 by 1.9 are very, very, very similar. This GemFan 2540, wow, look, it's actually doing better. The 2540 is doing better in this. That's weird. All three of these propellers are actually pretty decent. The 2540s, though, are definitely too pitchy for this motor. And you're about to see that. I've got the goggle footage here. And so here's another way that we can kind of look at this stuff, is we pull up the goggle footage. Well, here's how we can nail down the pitch of a propeller. Each manufacturer, GemFan, HQ, Emax, within that propeller manufacturer, if they say that a propeller is a higher pitch, it's going to be a higher pitch. As soon as you compare GemFan to HQ to Azure to Emax, that goes out the window. There seems to be just as little standardization in the pitch measurements as there is with all the other stuff that we deal with this. HQ, KV, all that other, just everything in FPV, to be honest. And so we got to look at the RPM that these things turn on a freshly charged battery. So what I do on a freshly charged battery is I go right out and just hammer it. And then when I disarm, it'll tell me what the RPM was. And so we've got some goggle footage here. So there's the 2540. You're going to see a very low RPM from this motor because it's so pitchy. And so I got another spreadsheet that I've been kind of beefing up here. So we got VCI 1103. What did I say it was earlier? Is it 11,000 kV? I think it is, right? Yeah, 11,000 kV. 11K. And then, so now this is GemFan 2540 propeller. Same battery, BT 3.0 450. All right. Okay, cool. So let's see what RPM we got from this motor here. And then we're going to put these into Gyroflow and see what's what. So the first time I disarm is here. Wow, it's really low. 31,879. 31,900. 31,900. 31,900. Yeah, did I disarm before that? That is really low. Nope. And so where's the battery at? The battery is at 4.15, and then we go full throttle. I saw 30 amps. I saw 32 amps there. Okay. That number seems a little bit too low. I need to test this again. I do want to test a fresh set of these propellers, though, so that's fine. 31,000. Let's just call it 31,900. 31,900. Okay. So there's the 2540. Now, what do we got? 2.5 by 1.9. Yeah, 2.5 by 1.9. The T 2.5 by 1.9. So here we go. So here's the full throttle blast. Let's see what amps it pulls. I saw 35 there for a split second. All right. Let's fast forward a little bit here until we disarm. Okay. 31,883. So let's call it 31,900. That's exactly the same. That's weird. Again, I do need to retest these 2540s. And so that was HQT 2.5 by 1.9 by 3. Okay. And then last but not least, GemFan 2520. And so the last file here is going to be the GemFan 2520 2520. Battery is at 4.14, 4.15, 36 amps. Seems like these three props are pretty similar. 34, 588. 34, 6. Okay, so it did feel in the air like the HQ props were a little bit more draggy. And now that makes total sense. The GemFan 2520 did 34,600 RPM, and then both the HQ 2.5 by 1.9 and the GemFan 2540 did 31,900. That is exactly what it felt like in the air. The GemFan felt like it was lower pitch and kind of more wispy. The HQ and then the higher pitch GemFan felt like more meaty, more grunty. What's interesting is that in the Blackbox logs, you could see those vibrations were shifted down significantly more on the GemFan 2540. I don't quite understand that. But let me check one more thing. On this file here, I didn't get as clean of a full throttle punch, but I'm curious as to what the RPM was. Let's see real quick here. 34,225. So that's very similar. 34,600, 34,225. So yeah, the GemFan 2520 is definitely easier to turn. Oh shit. I don't think I was sharing my screen just now. Looks like Brandon's Baked Beans is dropping some knowledge in the chat. Let me just drop the actual flight footage into Gyroflow, and then we will see what awesome knowledge Brandon is sharing in the chat. Brandon is our resident Blackbox genius, and he charges $1 a minute, which is incredibly inexpensive for very high level Blackbox tuning and teaching, and typically tuning though. But you're gonna learn as you're doing that. And so yeah, you can find him over my Discord. Just search for Brandon and you'll find him. And yeah, hook him up while he's hooking you up. All right, so last file, second to last file, and then these two. So I'm just gonna copy some of these over. That's the 2520. Here comes the 2540, which was the last of the files, and the last of the files, and then the middle file is the HQ, which is that one and that one. All right, cool. Give those a second to copy, and then we will drop. Oh, these are already done. Wait, these are the goggle DVR, though. I can't use these. Okay, give that a second there. Let me try to get a little bit caught up on chat. Brandon's White Bean says, since Betaflight 4.5, Blackbox logs unfiltered gyro by default. No need to log any debug mode unless you're doing something special. UAV Tech's new BBE preset for Betaflight 4.6 has unfiltered in workspace 0. Very cool. Yeah, I will continue to tell people to set gyro scaled so that regardless of what version of Betaflight you're on, you know, there's no reason not to set it to gyro scaled, but it is amazing that 4.5 and newer get gyro scaled no matter what. Brandon says, so you're technically recording unfiltered gyro twice. With the debug mode, you can get a tiny bit more data saved on the flash if you don't log the gyro scaled. So yeah, if you know, that's a good call. Yeah, this one is definitely on 4.5, so I should be able to turn gyro scaled off, and that'll give me even more. Good shit. And then Brandon says, sorry, I meant UAV Tech's preset for BBE 4.0. But again, as Brandon says, you do have to use the web-based blackbox.betaflight.com for that. Ailtop says, following up on my 75mm open prop motor, should I try the HQ Ultralight 1.6 biblades versus the GemFan? You should get them both. And then just, yeah. With propellers, they make the biggest difference in flight performance and in durability and in lots of things, and they're the cheapest. So when it comes to propellers, get yourself a big-ass Ziploc bag and fucking fill it with them. Fill it with all different propellers. And then not only do you have lots of props in case you fly a whole bunch and break a bunch of them, but you've got a whole bunch of really cheap ways to change the way that your builds perform, and it's also fun. It's fun to test different propellers because they make different sounds. They have different characteristics. Some are out of balance, some are in balance. So yeah, when in doubt, buy every single propeller that exists for the size rig that you're buying. It'll cost you probably like $20 whole, and it'll make a huge difference in the way it flies. So yeah, get them both. Amit says, I would love if you could check some pics I sent over in the server of my build 2.5. Yeah, give me a minute, brother. Let me get through like the rest of this testing, and then I'll dive in for sure. Brandon says, if you use Chrome or something Chrome based, you can run the current BBE in that browser at blackbox.betaflight.com. That's where the new version is now. Yeah, I try not to have to start Chrome when I'm live streaming because it's just so hard on the computer. But I mean, it's not going to show me anything different, right? Like what I'm seeing in here is all going to be the same, I believe, hopefully, right? Okay, so we're actually done with Blackbox. Now we're diving into Gyroflow, and so here we go. Let's take a look. The first props that I flew were the GemFan 2520s, and so that's going to be this file. Yeah, so this is the file with the gyro data, and I've not looked at this before, so this is new to me as well. Hopefully it's good. 2520, let's see how it does. Let's see how 2.5 is in comparison to 2.0. Same sort. Oh, that started shaking real early. That's not a good sign. All right, so now I will do slower throttle ramps here. Oh, not a great sign. Another slow throttle ramp. Oh, it's bad. Oh, it's bad. All right, and then at some point I will start just flying around gentle. But so far, 2-inch is doing better than 2.5. That, yeah, see, that's hitting, that's starting to jiggle around early. I am doing throttle ramps here, though, so I'm trying to get it to, yeah, see, that's a problem, though. The bottom of this dive, I'm not on the throttle very hard, and it's starting to get all kinds of upset. That's me putting the nose down pretty good. I'm not surprised that it's doing it there. I really buried the nose on that. What I'm most curious about is when I'm flying around gentle. And it seems to be freaking Gyroflow out a lot more than the 2-inch build. Yeah, that's... I mean, I am doing throttle. I am pumping the throttle there, but, like... Here we go. So here's some smooth flying. Yeah, no, it's getting really upset. Although I was getting on the throttle pretty good there. I don't think I did not spend as much time flying this smooth. To be honest, I kind of assumed that it would be better on the 2.5, so I was just flying more freely. This whole time here, yeah, then there it shakes again. All right, well, it's certainly not looking any better than the 2-inch setup, and I would rather have this build in the 2-inch to be lighter and smaller. So yeah, the GemFan 2520s don't seem to be the move. Let's take a look at the HQ props, which from the Blackbox logs should be about the same, but let's see. So HQ T 2.5 by 1.9 by 3. It's going to be a mess here because this is a full throttle hit. Now we're going to start doing slower throttle ramps. And it ain't looking great. Again, like it's starting to shake all around like early in these throttle ramps. Wow. Yeah, this ain't great. This is worse than the 2-inch. Definitely worse than the 2-inch build. Could be motor related though. We'll get another data point here when I switch to a brand new fresh set of motors. These VCI 1103s have been crashed a couple times, and as an 11 motor, they only have a 1.5 millimeter motor shaft. So I'll be really interested to see how this does on fresh motors. Maybe that's what's causing this to have so many problems. Okay, I've seen enough. Last is the Gemfan 2540 propellers. Let's see what they're like. It's going to go crazy here. And now these are not brand new propellers. They're not banged up or anything, but they're like a little bit dirty, so they've definitely been flown before, and maybe like crashed lightly. To be honest, it looks about the same. It might actually... I was about to say it might be a little bit better, but it's pretty similar. These are all pretty much unacceptable for me, for what I'm trying to do with this rig. For freestyle, here. For freestyle, you go to no smoothing. And it's totally fine. Like, flying these things freestyle is great. Absolutely no problems. It looks fine. A little bit of jello because it's middle of the day, no clouds, with no ND filter. But, yeah, to fly this thing freestyle, it would be completely fine. But I'm trying to optimize these for both freestyle and skinematic. So as an example of that, here it is. Here's the HQ, which was about the same as the other ones. Here it is without any fancy nonsense. Like for I think I got a little bit more aggressive towards the end here. Yeah, here you go. So like for freestyle flying around, this is pretty damn good. This looks great. I'm sure there is some oscillation here and there, but it gets covered up by the fact that you're moving so much. When you fly freestyle, you're rolling, you're pitching, you're yawing constantly, and that hides a lot of these crimes, right? Like, this looks awesome. You could throw music on this and have this be a fucking great freestyle edit, right? I thought this was the file where the squirrel was there. I guess not. And so, yeah, for flying for fun, for flying hard freestyle, this setup is great, as was the 2-inch, right? The 2-inch setup was totally fine as well. But for freestyle and cinematic, these motors might be the problem. Here's how you check. Here's how you check and see if your motors are the issue. This is the baby turtle. I got all this footage off here. Let's get rid of it. And we're gonna eject. And then real quick, let me just hit the... this is the memory card from the goggles. Let me just really quickly get that going and eject it. Okay, cool. Otherwise, I will forget. And I'll go do more testing, and I won't have any goggle DVR. That's called knowing yourself, friends. You're allowed to be shit, but as long as you know that you're shit, it's fine. Because you can make sure that your shitness doesn't shit all over everybody else. Okay, so we are going to plug the quad in. Wait, what am I doing? Oh, yeah. I'm going to show you guys how to check if your motors are healthy. So these propellers are a little bit banged up. So just so you know what I'm talking about when I say that these are not fresh propellers. Like, they're just a little bit dirty. Like, they're just not fresh out of the package, but like they're not beat up. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing beat up about these propellers. But for all of this kind of testing, I mean, that one's extremely dirty. And I did have a crash right at the end of the battery with these. But to check if your motors are healthy, you're going to remove the propellers. And these props needed to come off anyway, so let's do that real quick here. Brandon's White Bean says, I love the Hurricane 2520. The HQ props do seem to be a bit tougher, but I like the way the gem fans fly. YouTube did the thing, and now I'm trying to find where I was at. God damn it, YouTube. There we go. HQ do seem to be a bit tougher, but I like the way the gem fans fly. The 2540 flash is fast, but not great for freestyle, too fragile. That's pretty much been my experience. Yeah, the 2540s, because of that 40 pitch, they're very, very fast. But they are significantly lighter. One of the other spreadsheets that you patrons have access to is the FPV weights spreadsheet. And if I look in there, I've got a whole slew of the 2.5-inch props in there. So the HQ 2.5 by 1.9 here is 0.9 of a gram per propeller. The GemFan 2540 is 0.975. I'm actually surprised that this is that heavy. And then the GemFan 2520 is not on there? What? How is it not on there? Okay. I gotta get it on there. GemFan 2520 rather. Prop weight is, I'm dying to know now. I like to weigh 8. Oh shit. I like to weigh 8 propellers. Oh, balls. All right, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It just makes the scale more accurate. And then we're gonna go 8.2 divided by 8 equals 1.025. GemFan 2520. Jesus. 1.025. So it's actually a little bit heavier. I'm pretty surprised by that. The HQ 2.5 by 1.9 is the lightest. Interesting. Yeah, fair enough. Can't argue. They don't necessarily feel that way. It felt like the HQs were heavier, but it could be that they're pitchier, a more draggy or less aerodynamic, which would make sense. The T motor, oh, Jesus, the GemFan blade design looks three-dimensional and aerodynamic, right? Like this looks like it would slice through the wind very easily. The HQ blade design, as usual, looks like an 8th grader designed it. It's actually not that bad. This one is actually one of the more futuristic looking HQ blade designs that I've seen. But it doesn't look quite as fancy as the GemFan, right? And so this, especially like in here, like this looks thicker in through here. The GemFan really kind of thins out, and that could help the GemFan really slice through the wind. And we did see that with the RPMs. We saw that the GemFan 2520s are turning a considerable extra amount of RPM than the HQs. Right side, left side, left side. Right side. So, to test if your motors are healthy, you're going to pull the props off. You're going to hook a battery up to it, and then you're going to go into beta flight. You can also do this with turtle mode. It's just a little bit more sketchy. It's better to do this in beta flight. It's also a little safer to do this in beta flight. But once the props are off, it's kind of all the same. Brandon says, don't forget to look at the far left side of this plot. The HQ prop has more noise around 30 hertz, indicating oscillations. The gem fan appears smoother. What felt better to you? There were moments where I let these things sit down into their own prop wash in really awkward ways that I didn't, and it happened on, I want to say I forget which one, but I did not I left the Blackbox log on when I shouldn't have, and I think that could be where those 30 hertz oscillations are coming from. I need to be a little bit better about that. I need to be a little bit better about, like, turn the logging on, stay on throttle, fly the thing around, do everything that I want to do, and turn the logs off. I've been, like, leaving the logging on and, like, doing big split S's over the trees, and, like, sometimes I'm sitting it down into its own prop wash, sometimes I'm not. What I should really do is, like, fly an entire 3-minute battery with the logging on and do everything to try to get that full variety in there. But I haven't been doing that. I've been prioritizing, like, the throttle sweeps. And so, yeah. Brandon says, the more locked in that far left spike is, the more locked in the tune is. And then Aletop says, you can consider yourself a goat, man. I've always been the goat. I've got the screaming goat. No, I'm just a guy, man. I'm just a guy on the internet. Danzel says, if you don't end up using all those extra props, you can make your mom some earrings for Mother's Day. There you go. They'll cut the shit out of her neck, but, you know, whatever. It's her problem, not ours. Levster says, hey, Uriel says, start domesticating the squirrel. Give him nuts. Teach him to get your drone back out of the tree. I clean props with broil clean whippers. What's that mean? What's a broil clean whipper? L-Top says, I remember asking AI tons of questions when I got into the hobby, and it always routed me to your channel for info about micros. Did it really? Oh my god. That's scary. I am not on the AI train. I think that its effects on the environment are a little too scary, and its effects on people are a little too scary. And so I am sort of anti-AI at the moment, which could be dumb because, you know, if you don't start using it now, you're going to get left behind. But I don't know. As in a quote from The Big Lebowski, I still jerk off manually. Nathan Wells says, I was looking through your prop tables. If you put a 1 to 10 rating next to each one, I would find that helpful. Man, I would too, but that would be very inaccurate. It is really hard because it's there. You know, you can't boil everything down. Some propellers are really good for cinewhoops. Some propellers are really good for bando bashing. Some propellers are really good for cinematic flying, right? Like, it's just, it's impossible. I would have to do, like, multiple columns for each one of the different, like, how well balanced is it? How much power does it make? Yeah, it would become like a whole big thing. Nathan says that just gives us a general idea of how good they are. Yeah, I wish there was a better way of doing that, but it's pretty tough. I'll think about it. I'll put some thought into it and see if there's a a way that I can do that, because I would like that as well, because like right now I just have to look at the sheet and like which ones were those, which ones were these. I've done a couple live streams like really diving into the props. That should help, but yeah, it's a struggle for sure. What is nice though is that most of the really bad props you can't even buy anymore. So like any propellers that you can still buy are going to be pretty good. 9 times out of 10. When the shrimp wrap around these cells, 450 BT 3.0 cells, gets all mangled, it becomes really hard to get the little 3D printed battery straps around these things. So I always have to, after crashes, I have to take some time to smooth this shrimp wrap back out. Okay, take your propellers off. Here's how to see if your motors are banged up or not. Take your propellers off. Plug the quad in to beta flight. Put a battery on it. Launch beta flight. Take forever, as always. Not always. Sometimes it doesn't take a long time. I'm going to throw these 2540s out because they're very dirty, and they might be bent up. I don't think they actually are, but I have lots of them, so I shall sacrifice. Here we go. Okay, so connect to beta flight. Go to the motors tab. Plug a battery into the quad. In the motors tab, you are going to slide these sliders up very slowly. And you're first going to listen. So you're going to click this little button here. I understand the risks. The props are off. And you're going to spin these motors up. And hold the quad in your hand and feel for vibrations. But mainly just listen. Motor 1. Motor 2. Hear the difference? Motor 3. Motor 4. Okay. Motor 4, which is in the front, I can feel is vibrating harder than the rest. Motor 2 sounds a little bit worse, which is probably the bearing. Maybe the bearing is starting to get a little banged up. But motors 1 and 3, which are on the rear, which get smashed a lot less often, they sound and feel a lot better. Motor 2 is not that bad. Motor 4 definitely took a hit. You can feel the majority of the vibrations at around 1200 to 13 to 1400, which is 20 to 40% throttle. So you're going to sweep it right up in here and you'll feel the vibes. The other thing you can do is take the master slider, and if you click these sliders and then arrow up, you can arrow up 0.1% at a time. And so I'm going to arrow these motors up to like 1063, and then what I'm going to do is take my fingernail and put it against the motor shaft, and that's going to let you feel if the motor shaft is wobbling back and forth. I'm actually going to slow these down even more, and then I'm going to do that again. So I'm just putting my fingernail. Your fingernail is keratin. It's hard, and so you can feel if the motor shaft is bouncing back and forth from being bent. Holy shit. Sometimes you can even see the problem. Holy shit, dude. This is motor 4. Focus on the flesh, you fucker! Bitch, I'm giving you a full fucking screen of skin tone. Focus on it. There it goes. Motor 4 is ruined. They should not look like that. Motor 2 is not nearly as bad, but let's see if we can pick up a little wobble. Nah, see, motor 2, we can barely see the wobble. But yeah, motor 4 is wrecked. That's like bad. So that could very easily have happened. And then, of course, click stop motors before you disconnect. That could very well have happened on that crash that I showed you guys. That crash, I forget which motor came unplugged in that crash, but it was a pretty hard hit. That's the problem with 11 series motors. These motors have been on here for some crashes, but not a lot. But we've already got one motor that's all the way gone. Like this has to come off. I think I bought 5 of these motors. I certainly hope that I did. If I did not, then we will be redoing all of this testing on another set of motors. But yeah, hopefully I've got one extra of these motors that I can swap on, finish this propeller testing. Like I said, motor 2 was not all that bad. And then once I figure out which of these propellers is best balanced, then I can start switching motors. But I would like to do the majority, if not all of this testing on the same set of motors. I can actually, let me see if I did get a 5th motor, because I remember I bought these from Fly High. And so if I search for Fly High and I look at my order, shit, I only ordered 4 of them. All right, well, these motors are too small anyway, so all of the testing is, not all the testing is invalid. We kind of started to see some differences there, but hopefully, this is actually really good news, because we've got a motor that is bent up. You know what? I hope that this did not happen in that last crash, because this being banged up previously, hopefully, would explain why the 2.5-inch rig is worse than the 2-inch setup. This should be better. All of the RPM that these motors are pulling and propellers are pulling should be significantly lower than on the 2-inch rig. And we know that the higher RPMs is where Gyroflow has even worse problems. And so this is kind of a good thing, unless it happened on that last crash. But regardless, these motors have to come off. I am not going to continue the prop testing with that motor being that banged up, regardless of when it happens. So the next testing that you're going to see is going to be on 1202.5s. I'm not sure which ones yet. Doesn't really matter which ones, but I'm going to have to redo this prop testing. We got a good little data set from these 1103s, though. I got some RPM on 3 different propellers. I'll retest those 3 different propellers on the 1202.5s, and we should see a pretty striking difference in the RPM that those 1202s can pull. What's the difference in stator volume? I know I looked this up like a week ago, but I forget what the deal is. So if we come in here, here's a link to this website. This is a really, really, really handy website. So you just come in here and I can do 1202.5, and then I can do 1103. And so 1202.5 has more surface area. And so the 1202.5 is going to stay cooler because it has more surface area than the 1103. But then the volume, it's the same. That's so close that it's the same. So yeah, the 1202.5 is going to stay cooler. It's got the same stator volume. And so motors that stay cooler are going to make more power. They are going to run better. So we should not see a drastic increase in RPM unless like these VCI motors are kind of weak. These motors are 11,000 kV. And so what's the closest? The GEP RC 1202.5s are 10,000 kV. The Happy models are Ooh, the happy models are 11,500. I wish I had something that was exactly 11,000, but let's try the we'll do the happy models first. We'll try the happy models first. On this guy, and then we'll move to the Get RCs. Because it's going to be making too much power, basically. I think it only really needs 10,000 kV, so it's probably going to end up on these motors and stay on these motors, so I'll test these last. I think the Happy Model 11,500 is going to be a bit much. But yeah, so cool. We'll get these VCIs off. I'm going to take this one off right now so that I don't forget that it's like banged up. And I'm going to pull the bell off and save the stator, because the stator is probably fine. It's the bell that's fucked. And so I might as well show you guys how to do that while I'm at it. Time's at 5. Oh my god, it's after 5 already? I don't have I'm not teaching class tonight though, so I got plenty of time. So here's how you take the bells off of these impossibly small motors. There's an itty bitty little C clip in there, or E clip. And on this VCI motor, it actually looks like it'll be pretty easy to get that off. You're going to take needle nose smooth jawed pliers. And what I like to do is come in at an angle here, and I'm just trying to bump the C clip. Right now, the C clip is all the way around the motor shaft like that. Initially, what I want to do is just bump the C clip, and what'll happen is it'll open like that, and then it'll be here. And then what you can do is just hit one of these sides, and it'll pop right off. Sometimes this doesn't work, sometimes this does. So let's give it a shot. We're gonna come in, and I'm coming in at an angle like this. Hopefully you can see that. I'm coming in, and so one side of the jaws is on the motor shaft, the other side of the jaws is on the C clip. I'm gonna keep my thumb here so that if the C clip tries to shoot off, it shoots into my thumb. And so we'll just try to bump it and then just turn a little bit. Bump it so it's open and then just turn. I'm not able to push it quite far enough. It doesn't look like. Damn. Okay. So we have to do it the more stabby way, which is to take these, and you're going to go into the open sides of the C clip, and you're just trying to kind of like open it up and push it off at the same time. Make sure you keep your thumb here though, or else you will lose this C clip. And so there we go. That way worked. You kind of stab yourself a little bit, but embrace the pain. And so there you go. Now that that C clip is off, you can just pull the bell off the stator. Usually. Sometimes the bottom of the motor will get like mushroomed out a little bit, and you got to kind of work it a little bit. Sometimes you'll even have to bolt the motor down to the frame to get it off. Jesus. You can also kind of how we push that out. You got to be really careful. It's easy to jack this all up. Let's try this. Let's take a little M1.5 and put it on the motor shaft. Problem is this M1.5 is taller, is wider than this motor shaft, so this isn't really gonna work. It's hard because like you got to get a grip on the stator to put any significant force into it, but there's not a whole lot to hold on to, so I'm trying to just like push down on the motor shaft. There we go. There we go. I just had to get it over like over the little hump there. Jesus, it's fighting me again. If I bolted this down to a frame, it would be pretty easy. There we go. All right. Awesome. And now inside of here is going to be a washer. And I like to salvage all these washers. Never know when you might need one. And so take the washer out of there. Keep the C-clip, keep the washer, and this bell is jacked. I wonder if we can see, if I roll it across the desk, I wonder if we can see it wobbling. Not quite. But yeah, obviously this was bent the fuck up. I wonder if the motor shaft and the bell are still laser welded together. Yeah, they are. So these guys are still laser. This bell is totally worthless. Let's see how easy or hard it is to break this laser weld, right? So if I just pull on this, and I'm even gonna try to wiggle it, I can't budge that. But watch this. Watch how easy I can break this laser weld. If I hold this and turn this as if you're twisting a propeller off, yeah, it's actually twisting in the pliers. These are actually pretty good. Let's try it deeper down the jaws of the pliers. Oh, wow. Good job, VCI. They got this laser welded really strong. Okay. I've never actually done this before, so like I don't know what is an acceptable amount here of like abuse to be putting into this. But I'm turning this pretty good, and it is not letting go. So yeah, good on you, VCI. That seems pretty strong. Cool. All right, in the bin. This stator though is fine. So I'm gonna take a little baggie, and I'm just gonna write down what this is. VCI 1102, just in case I need a replacement stator at some point for these motors. VCI 1103, not 2. What's the KV? 11,000. All right. Sweet. I'm actually going to end up putting all 4 motors in this little bag. And then this C-clip and O-ring are going to stick to one of the motors. And that's going to completely screw me over. Maybe not. Okay. There we go. So that's how you take a motor bell off of an itty-bitty motor. It's an inexact science, but if you do it a bunch of times, you'll get good at it. I promise. Let me finish up on chat, and then we will round this live stream on out. Nathan Wells says that just gives us a general idea of how good they are. Head Boop Game says I got that goat scream when I boot up my Radio Master Zorro. Nice. Uriel says we bad. Nathan Wells says mostly I was trying to eliminate unbalanced. Yeah, unbalanced props. Most of them are unbalanced, to be honest. There's only usually like 1 or 2, as we saw with the 2-inch props, where they actually are balanced. Micro props are very difficult to balance, apparently. Smile says, have you ever tried cutting your lawn with a push-mounted mower with razor blades on the props? On the props, I have not. That sounds insane. Levster says, AI listed you as top 10 YouTube channels for micros, and you are the community favorite. Oh, that's awesome. That's hysterical. Vessel says, will you be checking out Spider Sugar's motors? I will indeed. I was actually talking to him about them a week or 2 ago. Uriel says, better tap it on top with small hammer to get that bell out. Yeah, that would have worked. That would have worked. It's just hard. It's just hard to hold the stator when you put some force on the motor shaft. Bowden says, are you able to solder a capacitor to an XT60 lead? You can absolutely do that, but it's not going to accomplish anything. The battery is just as good of a capacitor in that scenario. If you're going to put a capacitor on a quad, it has to be as close as possible to the ESC battery pads. That's the only way for the capacitor to actually work. So yeah, putting a capacitor on an XT60 or an XT30 lead, it doesn't really do anything. You can certainly do it, but when it eventually breaks off, it has a chance of, there's a chance of like a current spike, which could have your shit fall out of the sky, so don't do it. But you certainly can. It won't accomplish anything, and it might make you lose your rig. Ryan, with the last comment of the live stream, he says, did you ever try an underslung battery on any of the micros? So underslung used to be like the only way. Way back when there were no top-mounted micros. And the underslung thing is like fine, but like the CG ends up being very low, so the quad kind of like, it almost feels like it flies like this, like a pendulum. Whereas when the battery is on top, it kind of feels like it's rotating on its own axis. It's totally fine having an underslung battery. Don't get me wrong, but top mount is much better for center of gravity, and so that's why we've always kind of done it on freestyle stuff. Thanks for hanging, friends. Gertjan's in the house. What's up, brother? Glad you just barely caught the end. Bowden says, what do I do if my capacitor is not fitting because of my VTX? You got to find another way. Maybe just don't run one. You don't. Sometimes you don't need one. But yeah, you got to find somewhere else for it. If there's absolutely nowhere for it, just try not running it. I don't run capacitors on like any of these micro builds because there's not a good place to put it. Capacitors are for when the electrical system is noisy or bigger, more powerful builds. Yeah, thanks for hanging, friends. CiottiFPV.com if you like these live streams, would like to see them continue. I do need your help. Everybody's got to do something. Click thumbs up, subscribe, click the little bell icon, take a clip of this live stream and send it to a buddy. Do something. If everybody does something, I can keep doing this. If everybody takes it for granted that like each one of us has to do at least something to help people doing crazy shit keep doing crazy shit, then I'll disappear into the ether and you'll never see me again. That's a little drastic, but you know what I'm saying. I did put 6 batteries in the last 2 live streams, and I did not fly any batteries in the last live stream, so I have to fly at least 1. If I fly 1, you guys fly the other 5. That's how it sometimes works. If you fly 6 batteries a day, your flying skills will improve at a rate that you can't even believe. It makes a massive difference. This is the indestructible ultimate freestyle tiny whoop. Let's at least fly 1 tiny whoop today. Whoa, okay, get out of there. Speaking of out of balance, there's something, I think probably these propellers. Yikes! I didn't need to disarm. Woo, I nipped it. I nippled it. Man, the latency. Every time I fly a bunch of 04 Lite, and then I come back to analog, I'm like, oh, yo, it's so fast. The latency is just so crisp. Hey. What? Boy, I'm having a hard time. Okay, hold on. Hold on, get it together. Better. Man, I'm having a tough time. I think it's an up tilt thing at the moment. I think I'm struggling with how much difference there is in the up tilt. Hey. Get off of there. There we go. Oh my god, come on now. Oh, you! I might be able to get out of this. Oh! Never die! I didn't mean to say never die. That doesn't make any sense. You know what I was trying to say. Nope. Not a good mirror flip. Let's try one more time. Oh, that one was pretty good. Oh, no! We're good. Oh, we're not good. We're good again. This has the We Bleed 40,000 kV 0702s on it. Oh, I can't believe I dropped down into the drum set. Oh, I didn't quite throw it far enough forward. Oh, it reset. It's playing the Tim Gunn theme over there. Boop, boop. Oh my god, I almost hit myself in the head! We do one more. Let's do one more. I'm just starting to get a little bit adjusted to flying this. Just barely starting to get warmed up. These are Lava V2 320 mAh batteries, by the way. Boop, boop. Head loop is freaking out a little bit. I think one of these propellers is kind of banged up. You can see a little bit of jello in here, too. Is that Maggie building the flowers? Lil Boo and I were supposed to build those flowers. Look at this guy. Look at this character. Oh. Oh, boy. Whoops. Oh, my God. Why did it go forward? I was trying to get it to go backwards. As you can see, big power from this rig. These 40,000 kV motors are awesome. They're not as hard on the battery though as you would think. I'm getting better at these right-handed orbits, although I'm not really doing this as an orbit. I'm just doing this as like turning to the right. If I pull the object into the center a little bit more, I can do it more as an actual orbit. Whew, boy. I am way weaker at right-handed orbits than left. It's really kind of absurd, but I'm trying to orbit that thing every time it's on, and that will fix that skill gap between right and left. Oh, balls. Stop it! So fucking much shit to hit in here. God, it's so busy. Oh, that was a big one. Come on now. I did not hit that. Are you shitting me? What? That's some baby back bullshit. I did hit that. That was my bad. Oh God, it's gonna hit me. It did indeed. Oh, that was not satisfying at all. Much better. Oh, how dare you. That's better. I did not get into FPV to get exercise. I will always take it back off to land it in a place that I don't have to bend over. It's like such a weird deal breaker. So stupid. Thanks for hanging, people. CiottiFPV.com to support me. Do a little something. Clip your favorite part of this live stream and post it in your local Discord or your local group or something like that. That's something that gets people to watch. And it's just fun to clip stuff from a live stream. Be your local hero. Clip the thing of me pulling the C clip or how to test the motors or something like that and be like, yo, good tech advice. So many people don't know that shit. I know for like us, it's obvious because I've been talking about it for years, but like most people don't know that stuff and it's kind of a big deal. So clip that from this live stream and post it in your local group and people will love you for hooking them up with that good, sweet, juicy knowledge that doesn't come from AI or Facebook groups or Reddit. Love you guys. Bye. I'm not ready. Here comes the battery with the glip glops in flip flops. This is the GemFan 2520 battery. Now, here's the HQ T 2.5 by 1.9 by 3 battery. Goggle view first, and then it'll automatically go into the flip flops in the dingle dangle. See you guys tomorrow night at 10. Giveaway stream tomorrow night at 10. Join Patreon, $5 or more. You'll be automatically entered. Love you. Bye.
Yeah. Out in the yard where the grass grows wild, CiottiFPV's goggles locked, grinning like a child. Teddy Spaghetti's fur flies and jet wash dreams. Yeah. Chasing small whoops like a dog possessed fiend. Eyes on a neon blur, hard in the chase. Bit fuzz and prop spin all tangled in place. Yeah. Four-legged rebel with a rotor stir tail in the circus of the sky. They never fail. CiottiFPV, Teddy Spaghetti, dynamic duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Yeah. Sighties on sticks, Teddy's on paws, side by side legends breaking all the laws. Through the kitchen over couch scale terrain, backyard mayhem in their flight domain. No ground too sacred, no loop too tight. Fuzz fuel fury ignites the night. When pilot and pup lock eyes on the prize, every whoop they conquer is a fresh cut surprise. Yeah. Shotty behind the sticks, Teddy's leading the pack. Prop guard missiles unleashed, never looking back. No leash, no map, just freestyle mic. They on the dog drone streets every day and night. Said whoops, hitting low, gotta nail the dive, Teddy. Push throttle up, feel the beast come alive. I see the neon arc, got the sticks locked in, Teddy. Yeah. Let's rip this loop, ride the roar of the wind, Teddy. Yep. Yeah, CiottiFPV, Teddy Spaghetti, diamond and duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Teddy Spaghetti. Barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Yeah, when you hear that bar cut the rotor hum, you know Ciotti and Teddy's mission's just begun. FPV's fur-faced legends singing loud. Yeah, Teddy Spaghetti and CiottiFPV always proud.